Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, who is here today represented by the Permanent Secretary and Solicitor General of the Federation, Mr. Daya Akpata, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, the Chief Judge of the Federal Capital Territory, who is here today represented by my Lord, Honorable Justice Hussein Baba Yusuf, the President of the Nigerian Bar Association, who is here today represented by the First Vice President and Chairperson of the Human Rights Committee, Mr. John Aipobo Martins, distinguished members of this panel, team of external and internal counsel to the panel, and consultants to the panel, members of the civil society who are here, complainants and alleged violators, gentlemen and women of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I am indeed delighted to welcome you all to this independent investigative panel for the investigation of complaints of human rights violations following the End SARS protests of October 2020. This investigative panel could not have come at a more opportune time than now. Considering the events of the recent past, this panel is indeed a soothing balm for many Nigerians who have been itching for an opportunity to have their complaints against SARS and other police officers to be heard. This panel has also been set up as implementation of one of the recommendations of the 2018 Presidential Panel Report on SARS reforms, which, amongst other things, recommended the institutionalization of an annual mechanism by the Commission to listen to the complaints of human rights violation by officers of the Nigerian Police Force for purposes of accountability for human rights violations and for prevention of impunity. This panel will therefore listen to all complaints against officers of SARS, other technical units of the force, and also against other members of the Nigerian Police Force. The purpose is to create awareness and consciousness amongst police officers that while conducting their official duties, there will be a day of reckoning. Therefore, there will be the need for them to operate within their rules of engagement, operational and constitutional guidelines. Certainty of accountability, more than any other institutional measure, could constitute a discouraging factor for impunity and police brutality. The members of this panel have been carefully chosen to cut across the various strata of society and necessary stakeholders in criminal justice administration. This is namely the civil society, the youth, the Nigerian Bar Association, the National Human Rights Commission, the Public Complaints Commission, the Nigerian Police Force, and is headed by a retired Justice of the Supreme Court, my Lord Justice Suleiman Galadima. We believe the membership of the panel predisposes it to the independence it requires to deal with all matters before it, dispassionately and without fear or favor, to all manner of people, without hate or ill will. I must emphasize that the National Human Rights Commission Amendment Act 2020, by the National Human Rights Amendment Act 2020, this panel of the Commission shall use any procedure that is convenient to carry out its investigations to arrive at substantial justice, and will not be bound by strict rules of evidence or procedure, nor will the panel be bogged down by theoretical or practical technicalities. The panel must focus on substantial justice to both the complainants and alleged violators, because this is a Human Rights Commission panel, and must not be involved in miscarriage of justice. Justice, as you are aware, is a two-way traffic. It is both for the complainant and for the alleged violator. The panel has been established with the mentioned terms of reference, namely, to investigate allegations of human rights violations and abuse of power, made against defunct SARS and other units of the Nigerian police force. To make recommendations as to the damages or compensation payable in relation to any violation of human rights where it deems this necessary in the circumstance. Refer any matter of human rights violation requiring prosecution to the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, as the case may be. The panel is also to make recommendations to government on measures to be taken in respect of operatives of defunct SARS or other officers of the Nigerian police force, if any, found in violation of human rights of citizens. Propose remedial steps that may enhance the professional conduct of defunct SARS operatives and succeeding units and other members of the Nigerian police force, and any other recommendations that may be considered appropriate. The panel has been set up pursuant to the inherent mandate of the National Human Rights Commission to investigate human rights violations in accordance with sections 6(1)(a), D, E, F, and G of the National Human Rights Commission Act 1995 as amended by the NHRC Amendment Act 2010. The said Amendment Act also empowers the Commission to adopt the procedure it deems fit in the investigation of allegations of human rights violations before it. The panel will therefore adopt human rights procedure which it deems fit in the circumstances of the sittings to arrive at substantial justice. The panel is also targeted at ensuring accessibility to victims of human rights violations. In this regard, the panel has extended the 2 weeks window for submission of complaints so that Nigerians can have unhindered access to the services of the panel. The closing date for submission of complaints will now be open. It is noteworthy that as at date, the panel has received about 150 complaints of human rights violation against SARS and police from across the FCT and 6 geopolitical zones of the country. Complaints keep pouring into the Commission every day for the attention of the panel. To improve access to, the Commission is collaborating with the Nigerian Bar Association to assist complainants to articulate their complaints and be represented before the panel on pro bono basis. The NBA will also appear as amicus curiae at the various panels, both at the state and federal level. Let me use this opportunity to clarify the relationship between the panels of inquiry at the states and the independent investigative panel of the NHRC at the national level. The various panels of inquiry and investigation have been set up pursuant to the directives of the federal government to address the ongoing SARS protests and demands. It is expedient in the circumstance to provide near avenues for canvassing complaints against SARS and other police personnel, and hence the need for concurrent panels in all the states. The National Human Rights Commission has primary responsibility for investigation of human rights violations, but not to the total exclusion of all other organs of government at state and national levels. Furthermore, the National Human Rights Commission has representation of its membership in all the state panels of inquiry. At the end of the hearings, each state panel will have its own report with recommendations. There will be recommendation within the ambit of implementation by the state government and another set of recommendations within the ambit of federal government for implementation. The state panel reports and recommendations will be submitted to the National Human Rights Commission Independent Investigative Panel at Abuja. The NHRC Investigative Panel, which will then compile a single report from the state recommendations for the implementation by the federal government and submit a single report as it relates to matters within the competence of the federal government for implementation. Whereas things like compensation, apology for human rights violations, prosecution as the case may be, can be implemented at the state level, the aspect of state panel recommendations dealing with disciplinary action on police personnel will be amongst recommendations for implementation by the federal government. The independent investigative panel will collaborate with the state panels to standardize operations and develop a uniform template for collation and compilation of the reports of the panels for easy analysis. The Commission seeks the support of Nigerians and key government agencies involved in oversight over the activities of the Nigerian police. This is very critical to get the police Nigeria deserves. It is not going to be an easy task, but one that needs the cooperation of all, including the police authorities. It is a courageous step by the Nigerian police force and its leadership to embrace the ongoing clamor for police reforms for their own survival as a law enforcement agency. The survival of the Nigerian police force will depend on its perceived usefulness to the people of Nigeria. A state of police brutality and impunity cannot help this positive perception. The police, like all public servants, are paid with taxpayers' money and can only survive with the support of the people. The present disposition of the police towards regime protection, rather than the people's protection, is colonial and no longer sustainable. This panel and its counterparts in the states is aimed at reminding police and other security personnel of the need to eschew impunity and embrace accountability as the only sustainable strategy for law enforcement in a modern democracy like Nigeria. Let me conclude this statement by putting on record the steps taken so far in the implementation of the 2018 Presidential Panel Report on SARS and police reforms. A list of 33 officers recommended for prosecution are being processed by the Honorable Attorneys General of the Federation and the states. A list of 35 officers recommended for dismissal are being processed by the Police Service Commission and the Inspector General of Police. List of 23 officers recommended for demotion are being processed by the Police Service Commission and Inspector General of Police. A list of 57 recommendations for compensation, totaling 264 million, is being processed through the 200 million victims compensation funds established in each of the 36 states and the FCT. The list of 35 cases of public apology has been dispatched to various states for publication of apology. A list of 23 cases of police brutality for re-investigation by the Nigerian police force is now being re-investigated. A list of 4 cases of obedience of court order by the police has been submitted to the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice and the IGP for enforcement. The list of 2 cases of police officers recommended for arrest and prosecution for abuse of power and conversion of people's property is also being pursued. Of course, you are aware that SARS has been disbanded as follow-up to the implementation of the report. The Police Act 2020 and the Police Trust Fund Act 2019 have been passed as part of the recommendations and implementation of the police reforms. The establishment of annual and sustainable mechanisms for accountability through the establishment of state panels of inquiry and this investigation, as well as establishment of state security and human rights committees, are all mechanisms established to contain brutality on an annual basis. Also, the establishment of stakeholders forum for police reforms composed of civil society, development partners, Nigerian Bar Association, National Human Rights Commission, Police Service Commission, Nigerian Police Force, and Ministry of Police Affairs. 5 subcommittees are now working out holistic police reforms. The technical subcommittees for the implementation of Presidential Panel Report are the technical committees are as follows. Subcommittee on Training, Capacity and Reorientation. Subcommittee on Logistics, Infrastructure, Communications and Technology. Subcommittee on Arrest, Detention and Investigations. Subcommittee on Regulations, Oversight and Accountability. And the last but not the least, Subcommittee on Financing, Welfare and Partnerships. These technical subcommittees shall be tasked with the following general mandate: to study and review the recommendations of the Presidential Panel on reform of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, to draw up work plan for the implementation of reforms for the next 3 years, drawing out programs in the relevant subcommittee's mandate and costing of reform process, propose reform measures in line with the specific mandate of the technical subcommittees and the recommendations of the panel, to consult the following existing laws and regulations and make recommendations on integrating them into police regulations, rules, and other internal working mechanisms, looking at the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Police Act 2020, the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015, the Anti-Torture Act 2017, the National Human Rights Commission Amendment Act 2010, 4 service regulations, and relevant gender-related policies and legislations. In conclusion, I want to thank the President for the approval of the implementation of the 2018 Presidential Panel on SARS Reform Report. The implementation of that report is a clear indication of the commitment of the federal government to the implementation of the reports of the current panel of inquiry by the government. Furthermore, the setting aside of Victims' Compensation Fund in each state for the settlement of any awards of compensation by the various ongoing panels of investigation strengthens government resolve to deal with cases of human rights violations as stipulated under the Constitution. Let me also thank our special guest, the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, the Chief Judge of the FCT, who is also offering us these facilities here. The Honorable Minister of the FCT, our development partners, the UNDP, Open Society Initiative for West Africa, MacArthur Foundation, Partners West Africa, Nigeria, Ford Foundation, and a host of others, PRAWA, civil society organizations, and other implementing agencies on police reforms, namely the Police Service Commission, the Nigerian Police Force, and the Ministry of Police Affairs and the media. I thank you for your unflinching support to make this panel a success. Thank you.
The comprehensive protocol established by the MC, and particularly the one embellished by the Executive Secretary of the Human Rights Commission. They are quite detailed. I crave your indulgence so that I can adopt them. But I want to appreciate particularly the presence of the representative of the Honorable CJ of the Federal Capital Territory, whom we should be able to appreciate his kindness for giving us this beautiful hall. For the past 5 days, he has been with us. In fact, he was the last person I saw yesterday. He took time with the Chief Registrar to personally supervise the clearing and cleaning of this place. I really want to appreciate him. He has done so well. Apart from this hall, he has also given us another hall somewhere next to this hall, which can be used as an alternative hall in case there's need for that. I want to thank you on behalf of the members of the Independent Investigative Panel on Human Rights Violation by the defunct Special Anti-Robbery Squad, otherwise known as SARS, and other units of the Nigerian Police Force. I warmly welcome you to this ceremony to mark the inaugural sitting of this panel. The events of October 2020 were defining moments for us as a nation and our march to become and attain the vision of founding fathers, which is to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign. Human rights are God's gift to humanity. They confer dignity to humankind and make us special beings. Their violation by any person or institution is not the least by the people who are meant to protect and serve for the enjoyment of human rights is absolutely condemnable and should be treated with all sense of justice and accountability. At the inaugural sitting, inauguration of the panel on the 21st of October, which is exactly 1 week from today, myself and the members of the panel pleaded with all those stakeholders who were with us that they should give us support and cooperation to make our work very easy. As at last night, the 3rd November 2020, we have received a total of 148 petitions in our docket. Out of this, we received 83 petitions from members of the public within the submission period and within the submission period, as is 3 from the National Human Rights Commission. They have been clamored by the public for extension of the deadline for submissions of petitions. As a panel, we want to hear as many citizens as are able to present themselves before us. In view of this, the panel and the Commission have decided to extend indefinitely the period of the submission of the petitions. It is our hope that this will enable alleged victims to present their petition before us. But one thing we shall encourage the petitioners and complainants that at any stage, any given time, a petitioner who feels they want to withdraw their petition, they are very free to do so. We want to encourage amicable settlement and reconciliation. Our panel's membership has been carefully drawn from major groups and constituencies that have expertise, relevance, and impact on human rights, justice, law enforcement, and police regulations and reforms. I'm confident with the support and cooperation of the government, the National Human Rights Commission, the petitioners, who are the aggrieved parties, and indeed the respondents, and the council representing both parties, the police and general public, who will deliver on this monumental task before us. I can assure you that we have a successful outcome of this exercise is not beyond the realm of possibility, if given the cooperation we need from you. Our panel will endeavor in every respect to abide by the rules of natural justice, will be fair and just to all manner of persons who appear before us as petitioners, complainants, respondents, and so on. This panel has been constituted to bring justice to victims of human rights violations. We'll be guided by this throughout our cities, and will strive to do substantial justice devoid of technicalities. We'll be guided by the dictum, old dictum, of Lord Justice Hewitt, founded in the old case of R. vs. Sussex, otherwise known as Ex parte McCarthy, as follows. It is not merely of some importance, but it is of fundamental importance that justice should not only be done, but should be manifestly and undoubtedly be seen to be done. I want to thank the Executive Secretary of the National Human Rights Commission, my brother, Chief Anthony Ojukwu, and his staff for their support and hard work they have put in since inauguration of the panels since 21st of October 2020. They have all worked around the clock to receive and process petitions and attend to the needs of petitioners from across the country. At this juncture, I also want to thank my Lord, the Chief Judge, as I've said, of this court, for donating this impressive ceremonial hall for the use of the panel. Last but not the least, I want to appreciate the support from the Attorney General, Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, given to this panel so far. I'm glad it's been ably represented by the Honorable Solicitor General and PAM Secretary in the person of Chief Diapata, SAN. I want to thank you all. In days to come, we shall solicit the support of the fourth estate of the realm and the various media groups. We'll be sitting from day to day and see how we can reduce the congestion in our docket. In that regard, we would very much like the Council to avail this opportunity and indeed the petitioners or complainants so that they make the work of the panel as easy as possible. Thank you for listening.
The inaugural sitting of the Independent Investigation Panel on Human Rights Violation by defunct Special Anti-Robbery Squad and other units of the Nigerian Police Force. It may be recalled that recently there were agitations across the country calling for the disbandment of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, of the Nigerian Police Force, following which His Excellency, the President, graciously considered and ordered the disbandment of the SARS at all levels. This is because the government believes in the potency of such criminal allegations against some bad eggs within the ranks and the file of the Nigerian Police Force. The demand of the initial and genuine protesters bordered on abuse of power, arbitrary and unlawful arrests and detention, enforced disappearance, extrajudicial killings, prolonged detention without trial, extortion, brutality, torture, as well as inhuman and degrading treatment against some members of the force. It is pertinent to note that this past panel is established pursuant to Section 6(1) A, D, E, F, and G of the National Human Rights Commission Act. Indeed, the said Section 6, particularly the subsection 1A, empowers the National Human Rights with the requisite power to investigate and address instances of allegation of human rights violations, such as the present allegations under reference. Let me assure Nigerians that the federal government is committed to its primary responsibility of protecting lives and properties of the citizens, and is also putting in place critical measures to avoid such unethical and inhuman conduct of some officers of the Nigerian Police Force. My office, being one of the frontliners in this aspect, will continue to work in synergy with the Commission in ensuring that any person indicted or where there is prima facie evidence of breaching any of the extant law shall be duly prosecuted. We may wish to recall the submission of the report of the presidential panel on the reform of the SARS of the Nigerian Police Force 2018 to 2019 by the Executive Secretary, National Human Rights Commission on the 19th of October, wherein a list of persons, statistics of the officers, recommended for prosecution and other actions was presented to my office, the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation, and the Minister of Justice by the ES for further action. I am glad to inform you that proactive actions are on top gear in concluding the process of charging those found culpable to respective court to answer to their alleged criminal conduct. Let me just quickly state that, as stated, just as the Executive Secretary stated in his welcome statement, the Office of the Attorney General has already put in motion processes of implementing the recommendations of the report. The weeks coming will be full of activities when the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice will be meeting the Attorneys Generals of the states. And this is bearing in mind the fact that, that some of the offenses and infractions are state offenses. And at the meeting, let me just state what is going to be put forward for the deliberation of the Attorneys General. That's encouraging the Attorneys General to establish panel and do peer review, establishment of the Office of Legal Advisors at the police force and headquarters and command. If I may just make this statement, they will find out that our criminal administrative system is we work in silos. What the Attorney General is looking at is that you now have the Ministry of Justice staff in the police as legal advisor. That will create a synergy and a good working environment in giving legal opinions in the police. So what we are thinking of having legal advisors in the police headquarters and other commands. Number 3, the Office of the Attorney Generals of the state to emulate the establishment of a custodial center. This is with the aim of decongesting the correctional units. And 4, and we want to also be holding the regular meetings by the Attorney Generals and the police this time around to have a constant meetings with the Attorney General of the state and the police, and also the quick passage of the Administration of Criminal Justice law by the states yet to adopt same. And we're also putting on table the establishment of the offices of the Ombudsman. While we await the report and recommendations of the present investigative panel, which cover criminal acts of human rights violations by the defunct SARS and the other units of the Nigerian Police Force, I must further assure that my office will be ready and ready to take up such recommendation report of the human rights contraventions and must prosecute such recommended person where there are substantial grounds to prosecute them. It must be noted the National Human Rights Commission that secured its establishment in 1995 is mandated to engage in restoration of peace by handling issues of human rights in such areas where conflict has been experienced, such as this present one. The post-conflict role of the National Human Rights Commission includes investigation into the root cause of such conflicts, investigation of post-conflict complaints, and recommendation on the best way to restoring a lasting peace. The Commission should, by law, encourage human rights negotiation and conflict parties seek and obtain justice for the victims and profile and monitor government post-conflict policies and others. I must note that despite the financial constraints and lack of skilled manpower being witnessed by the Commission has continued to deliver in its mandate, and I am optimistic that the present constituted panel will achieve its target goal by helping government to obtain an acceptable, transparent, and articulated report of the alleged human rights contraventions. It is believed that the establishment of this independent investigative panel to investigate such cases of police brutalities and inhuman treatment all around the country in year 2020 will help address the yearnings and demand of the Nigerian youths and citizens. At this juncture, may I use this opportunity to urge the investigative panel to speed up its activity for the realization of its mandate within the possible shortest time. Finally, permit me to commend the leadership of the National Human Rights Commission, led by Mr. Tony Ojukwu, for the invocation of the instrumentalities of law to nip in the bud those behind the violation of human rights in Nigerian cities, and state further affirm that my office readiness to work with the Commission in upholding the rule of law in Nigeria. Thank you all. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.